because I noticed right away that his lead is so amazing that he was changing rhythms and stuff.
Yep.
And I was catching them without thinking about it because I follow. Right?
Yeah.
And he said to me, he said, well, I gotta tell you, you've still got it. He says, whether you Lindy or not, you followed everything I threw at you. You know, and that was like, thank you.
I find that interesting as an analogy, right? Because, and I know you're not religious, so, but there's a lot you can learn from scripture. And I remember in high school when we had our end of the year, not end of the year, but like when you leave school, like what's called, like in our country it's called matric.
Oh yeah.
So
matriculation.
That's one. And I remember doing all this effort for the guy. I actually liked him, and I asked him if he could be my date. He liked someone else, I didn't know because he didn't read that. Anyway, long story short, we did these dance classes with one of my friends who was a ballroom instructor, and he and his partner dance competitions, you know. So I remember there was this one young man, called Luan. And Luan was in a different school. And Luan, you know, so they like change partners so we can learn to adapt to different people, not just your partner.
Right.
And I remember Luan walking up to me and he goes, "Can you dance?" And he was so cocky. I looked at him and I went, "Can you lead?" And I find that if you have a leader who takes who really cares for your well-being, if they do that and they can lead and they learn skills, whatever, it's easy to follow. And I remember saying to someone, I noticed with the guys, I know we're learning all, so, you know, but I've noticed when I was watching some of the more professional or the more experienced, the more practiced guys dancing, the young lady would look good if the lead was good.
Okay, so
and if she would follow.
I was just going to say, they are both skills.
Yes.
There is a very particular skill set for leading, and there is a very particular skill set for following. So really good professional dancers will learn both roles, because it seriously affects your ability to do the other if you understand the response, right?
That's right. Yeah.
But there is also a preference.
That's right.
Right? So I am a terrible leader because I don't like leading. Right? But I love to follow. Mm-hmm. So for me, there's nothing better than being paired with a good leader. And the other thing I wanted to say is that the first thing I learned when I was learning how to dance was my instructor said, your job as a follow is to make your lead look good. And your job as a lead is to make your follow look good. Mm-hmm. It's like put your attention on the other person, and if you don't do that, you end up being what I call a look at me lead. Yeah. Right? They're doing all these flashy moves, but as a follow, I hurt because they're not paying attention. But if you each try to make the other person look good, you end up looking really good together. Yeah. So at that night, Sunday night, we had a couple of people come up to. They didn't come up to me. They came up to the lead, and they said, "Watching you two dance was just amazing," you know. And the first thing out of my lead's mouth was, "It's all Deb." And the first thing I would say back is, it's all Mick. You know, it's like, yeah, I can't follow what's not there, but he can't lead if the follow's not going to do it. Yeah.
If there's conflict, yeah. And I found that it's just a really great analogy for leader, follower, husband, wife, spouse, however you want to say it. You know, like I remember Dad saying to me, there's too many too many chiefs and too few Indians. You know, or you know, if you have too many chefs in the kitchen, you know, there has to be the support.
There has to be a clear idea of who's doing what.
That's right. Not that, but it's obvious. It's like, well, if it's so obvious, just tell me anyway.
Oh, it has to be agreed upon. These are agreed upon roles. So even like when I first got married, he knew that I liked the financial planning side of it, and it wasn't that he abdicated, you know, that responsibility. He just knew that I enjoyed it, and he's like, "Do you mind keeping the books?" balancing the checkbook. I'm like, I'd love to, you know.
I like vacuuming and I like
There you go.
mowing, and Greg can't mow because he has allergies.
Yep.
So I'm like, I'll do that.
Yep.
And he doesn't like the vacuuming, and he hates the sound. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So the best relationship is where you can sort of. It's the same with volunteer jobs. The best volunteers are the ones that identify the jobs they enjoy doing, you know, and that somebody else might not.
But they're also productive in it. It's not just like you have to be willing and then able, right? So I can be willing because I enjoy it, but might not able. And it's like, well,
Not able, but competent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
competent would be a good
Yeah.
one to say. Yeah, it's a good word. Anyway, so that I thought when you started talking about that, I thought that's a really good one. And luring using food lures is like dancing. The
Yeah,
difference
it's
is
a
you're the
leading.
leader
Yeah.
and the dog's the follower. So I
Yeah.
always kind of giggle a little bit in my mind when people go, his dog's not doing it. And usually
Are you leading?
well, I wouldn't say that, but I video them.
Right.
And then I'll video me. And sometimes I'll just show them and they'll go, oh, that didn't look right. Like, what was I doing? Because
Right.
it's it's a bit of a coordination thing anyway,
Right.
perception thing. And other times I'll show them both and they'll look at me, look at them, and they'll go, yours looks better. And like, my lines are a bit cleaner. I'm very clear where I'm going. Takes practice.
Yeah.
So,
Anything.
So anyway.
Can't get good at something without doing it.
No.
And so often people give up because they can't be good at something immediately.
Yeah, that's what I loved learning from the compound effect. My only question is, how do you identify the point of diminishing return?
I think that's different for everybody. So like for some dancers, I know dancers that have been dancing for 15 years that are never going to be more than adequate. And a lot of them, the ones that are still dancing, have realized that and come to terms with it, and they still do it because they love it. But a lot of people drop off because I'm never going to get any better. Why would I keep doing this? It really is. It's up to you. You know, is it important enough to you to continue doing that thing?
Are you doing it for the credit? Are you doing it for the enjoyment of doing it?
Correct.
The intrinsic reinforcement.
Exactly.
It makes me think of a picture I've seen on Facebook where you've got on the one end you've got diamonds, and then you've got the one guy digging for like friggin', like he's got nothing to lose, and then the other one who kind of turns away just before. And I love the idea. What I don't like is when you're digging, and in the picture, it's easy to see the picture when you're not in the frame. But what if that was lava? So if that was lava, the guy walking away is going to
Smart one.
Yeah. So, and I find lives like that in a lot of terms. It's like, again, I love Albert Einstein saying, you're free to make any decision you want, you're not free of consequences. And that's a very good, like, if it's diamonds, again, if it's lava, again.
Yeah.
Context matters. Time, place, circumstance. Thank you, Steve. Alright. What I want to read here, I thought this would be a really good one. With The Gift of Fear from Gavin DeBecker. He has this note in the front.
We're taping though.
Yeah, there's this note in the front, and I thought it's really interesting about his book. It says, men of all ages and in all parts of the world are more violent than women. For this reason, the language in this book is mostly gender specific to men. I love what he said here. When it comes to violence, women can proudly relinquish recognition in the language, because here at least, politically correct would be statistically incorrect. And I love that because it's realistic. And yes, there are exceptions, but exceptions are exceptions. There's usually a rule.
There are female sociopaths, but there are not that many of them
compared
to men.
And obviously the bigger your sampling pool,
Yes.
the more obvious rules and patterns become, and then you'll get the odd one.
Billy,
outlier.
leave it. Billy, leave it.
So
Good boy.
and what I found fascinating is, and it comes back to the testosterone, the hormones and things which we learn about in the last couple of books of Mars and the when men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and I find it interesting how quite a few people are like, we don't agree with it, and I'm like, it's biology, you're not going to get away from it. You don't have to believe in gravity to be affected by it.
Correct.
You know, like,
Correct.
you're free to make any decision you want.
Females and males use different hormones. You cannot deny that. Yeah. Exactly.
And in that instance, what I've noticed about myself, and I don't have any data on this, only observation and experience, and some of my psychology clients' experience and observations. Some of the females that are on the spectrum have more testosterone than the average female. Not as much as the average male.
Right.
And vice versa for
Proportionately.
men.
Yeah.
They're usually because they've got something in their brain that gives them more estrogen.
And aside from hormonal differences, there's still the nature versus nurture.
Correct.
You still have the impact of the nurture. You know, how you were brought up.
They both count.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, like, I don't understand. There's not, like, you can't work with what you don't have.
They're not independent.
No, they work together, like
Yeah.
yin and yang.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just thought that was a really nice note to put in so people can understand there are exceptions. I thought that was pretty good. I'll stop it there and then I'll do a new video.
I just needed to